Jessica, I think you can go ahead and start the recording, and she has. We're all set there. I just wanted to quickly, before I turn it over to Al for opening remarks, I wanted to go over the kind of meeting rules that Lauren had set for the last one. Primary commitment is to learn from each other and make our efforts stronger. We'll listen to each other and not talk at each other. We'll acknowledge differences among us in background, skills, interests, and values, and realize that these very differences will increase our awareness and understanding through the process. We take space and make space. We create an environment for everyone to contribute. We speak up when we have something to share, but we leave room for others to share, participate fully. We let go of all other things we need to be doing and keep our focus here if we could, and use I statements. We tell our experiences and our perspective and then assume that others feel the same way. I do have one item that I'm going to move. I'm going to move the Department of Corrections overlap to the just after the overview, as Monica needs to be on a call with CAX on the good time. So I'm going to move that to number 4 on our list, just for everybody's edification. So
thank you, Brad. And I saw your face, Alice.
Yeah.
I'm going to turn it over to Al for opening remarks.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for being here today. Appreciate everyone taking the time to join us. I think one of the big things is I know we're going to get to introductions, but welcoming Brad Goodhale to our team. The last executive team, Brad was not with us officially. He's done an amazing job. Great hire on behalf of the Department of Corrections, bringing Brad on board. This project, as you all know, has been in the works since last winter, and obviously with COVID hitting, it provided some roadblocks for us.
Thank you.
Brad coming in has smoothed out those roadblocks, and the work with he and Kathy and Abby and Jess, it's just I can't say enough about how much this team is doing and how well they're doing pushing this project forward. I know, as we started with the PRIN project, everybody was really excited. The kickoff meeting last February, a lot of momentum. We kind of lost that momentum. Brad has brought it back. And this thing, and I'm looking forward to the updates from folks. Several of our people on the call were on the CrimCon panel discussion yesterday, so I'm looking forward to updates from that and them sharing that experience. That was a national criminology consortium where there was a presentation about working collaboratively between a research facility and a correctional facility. So I'll let them share that piece of it. But again, just welcome to everybody. Really looking forward to seeing where this goes. Even with COVID in place and the restrictions that has put on us, people are moving along, and I think you'll be happy to hear what some of the updates are with this project. So, Brad, I'll turn it back to you.
Okay, I'm going to quickly go through introductions. I'll just call out a name. If you just give your name and your organization or stakeholder that you represent, just so everybody gets an idea. I'm still learning myself, but again, I'm Brad Goodhale. I'm the PRIN, represent DOC and facilitate the project between all of our stakeholders. So I'll just go down alphabetically as it's listed on here. I got Abigail.
I'm Abby Crocker. I'm the research partner at the University of Vermont. I'm a professor of statistics.
And Alice.
I'm State Representative Alice Emmons, and I represent the town of Springfield, and I am also chair of the House Corrections and Institutions Committee and vice chair of the Joint Justice Oversight Committee.
And we do have guests on with us. Andy Moss.
Hello, everyone. Moss, the Moss Group. I'm happy to be here just to try to better understand the project. And I think probably some of you know we've been engaged to work with the department, and very excited about that. So just trying to educate myself right now. So good to see some of you that I do know.
And I'm going to skip over you, Al, because I think we all know. Dr. Amons.
Hi, I'm Dr. Lori Ammons. I'm a psychologist by trade. I work for Vital Core Health Strategies as the Chief Operating Officer of Clinical Services, and we are currently the medical contractor for the Department of Corrections.
And Lauren.
Hi, my name is Lauren Farrell. I work at the Urban Institute, so a research partner, and I'll be taking notes.
Michael.
Hi, I'm Michael Broder. I'm a 13-year DOC employee, and I am the VSCA union rep for the PRIN project. I'm the executive counsel.
Judy.
Hi, everybody. I'm Judy Henkin, and I'm the Deputy Commissioner of the Department of Corrections.
Jesse.
Afternoon, everyone. I'm Jesse Janetta. I'm a Senior Policy Fellow at the Urban Institute and leading our work specifically with Vermont through the PRIN project.
And Karen.
Good afternoon, everybody. It's good to see all of you. I'm Karen Transgard Scott. I'm the Executive Director at the Vermont Network Against Domestic and Sexual Violence.
And Kathy. Oh, I don't hear Kathy. I know she's on, but maybe she doesn't look like she's muted. Kathy Fox at UVM. Jessica.
Hello, I'm Jess King-Moore. Many of you know me as in Brad's position before we hired him, but my position now that's going to be a little bit of a difference here is as the lead research analyst with the Department of Corrections, and I work a lot with the administrative data with UVM and our contract with them.
And I have Linda Weinberg.
Thank you. Yes, Linda Weinberg with the Moss Group. So I'm working with Andy on the Vermont work, and just here to educate myself and happy to be here. Thanks.
And Mike Lyons.
Yes, hello everybody. I'm Mike Lyon. I'm the superintendent at Southern State Correctional Facility.
Mary Beth.
Hi, I'm Mary Beth Redmond. I am a state rep from Essex in Chittenden County. I sit on House Human Services, and I'm also a member of the Joint Child Protection Oversight Committee. It's great to be here. And I'm hoping at the end of our list, we can check in with Kathy again and hopefully hear from her.
Yeah, she's having troubles with her mic. She texted that. Rudy.
Hi, everybody. My name is Rudy Perez. I'm a research analyst with the Justice Policy Center at the Urban Institute.
And we have David.
Hi, everybody. I'm David Scher, Assistant Attorney General, and here representing the Attorney General's office.
And Becca.
Hi, I'm Vermont State Senator Becca Ballant. I am the majority leader in the Senate, and if all goes well, will be the next pro tem of the Senate. So I'm here representing the Senate today.
Heather.
Hi, everybody. Heather Simons, Director of Professional Standards with Corrections, and I'm listening in today.
Timothy.
Tim is fine. My name's Tim Burgess. I'm an advocate for people who are under supervision or who are incarcerated, and I look forward to hearing a lot today. Thanks.
Okay, and we have Monica.
Hi, everyone. I'm Monica Weber. I'm the Administrative Services Director for the Department of Corrections. And what that means in real words is I'm oversee the policy unit, the data and research unit, and that's there's a lot of intersection with those two areas with this project.
And finally, I have someone on the phone at 355-1685.
Hey, everybody, it's Tom Dalton, Executive Director of Vermonters for Criminal Justice Reform.
Okay. All right. Quickly, I don't think I skipped over anybody. I don't think I've seen anybody signed in.
Brad,
So
can I try again? Can you hear me?
Sure, Kathy, are you there?
Yeah, something I might. So I'm Kathy Fox from UVM. I'm a professor in sociology, and I'm part of the external research team along with Abby. We're the ones conducting the focus groups and interviews.
Okay. All right, first up on the agenda, I kind of wanted to go over I did watch the video of the first meeting back in August. I just wanted to go over a few things, maybe reiterate our mission and what I think our why might be for this project. And looking at the mission, I looked at exactly what Urban has written. It said this initiative is to generate transformative thinking and draw national attention to problems in American prisons by enlisting the support, input, expertise, and innovative ideas of state and national stakeholders and international prison experts, and promoting awareness about the challenges of current prison operations, importance of robust accountability measures. So I kind of took a look at that, kind of boiled it down, tried to think of a vision that we could take from this, and I keep coming back to a statement that I had seen in other places, but I think our project here with everybody involved is we're trying to infuse humanity into the Vermont correctional system and operations. I'm not sure if everybody agrees with that, but from what I see, hopefully from the end results of what we will learn from this study is that bringing basic humanity to both the inmates and the staff in the prisons and in the Vermont system, I think is pretty much what we're striving for. And what kind of brought me to that, I'm going to go a little inspirational on that. And I'm a big fan of Simon Sinek and understanding your why. And I think our why is inspired on what this project can shape the future of Southern, the future of Vermont DOC, and the future of corrections. And I think we do this at Vermont, I think was a perfect choice for this project because we've done a lot of firsts in this country, going back to 1777 and our first Constitution for the Republic of Vermont. We were the first to abolish slavery. They were first to mandate public funding for universal education. In 2000, we allowed civil unions. In 2009, we legislatively allowed same-sex marriages without the court. In 2014, we did the GMO labeling. So I kept kind of boiling it down, and I kind of want to use Vermont as a verb of what we do. It says we Vermont as a verb. We don't do things just to be celebrated. We don't do things just to disrupt the status quo. We don't do things just because. I think in Vermont, we do things because they are the right thing to do. And this project, at least to myself, I think is the right thing to do. And that's the reason why we're doing it. I'm going to get off my soapbox with that. I just wanted to kind of set what was going on, what I was feeling. And if anybody has any comments, I'd love to hear it. If I'm way off base, just let me know. Okay.
I think that was great, Brad. I love the first. That's great. I love how you brought that all together. Makes perfect sense and fits right into where we are going with this. So thank you.
Thank you. So reading back through some of the statements and the notes from the last meeting, I just wanted to reiterate, why the executive committee was formed. And from the charter, you as the executive committee, we're here to provide knowledge, expertise, and resources to assist with the research, leverage information obtained and shared via research activities to make our change actionable, use your position in the community to push forward and act upon recommendations from staff and the incarcerated people in Southern, and identify means to support the success of the project. Your impact will be great when we get to the point of implementing changes that Abby and Kathy find through the research and the collection of the data. So I just wanted to just reiterate what we are all here for this project. If anybody had any comments for that. Okay.
Can I say something?
Go ahead.
Mary
Go
Beth,
ahead.
Finch, thank you. I really appreciate your description about, you know, infusing humanity. You know, I think humanity and dignity of people is really, those are core values for me, at the core of what has been so drastically missing in our correctional and criminal justice system. But I guess I hope that we can take it, you know, I know this project is confined to a particular scope of work, but my goal is that we would transform this system into a completely different creation than what it currently is. And so I just don't want to, I don't want to set our sights too low. I mean, that is my end game. That is my ultimate goal in collaboration and coordination with all of you, that when we, you know, come out the other end of all of this work that we're doing in so many committees and so many levels, that we are going to end up with a system that truly transforms and rehabilitates. And I don't want to work for anything less than that. So I appreciate your description, but that's housed within a much bigger vision for me.
I like that. I like the idea, and it's always nice to have a good friend of mine who started another project says the goals that seem unattainable are always the best to strive for. So I am 100% behind you, Mary Beth.
Thanks.
Okay. So over the last couple of months since I started back in September, I've been hearing bits and pieces about other projects going on in and around DOC. And I kind of sent out a list of overlap of projects. There's the justice reinvestment, the work with the Moss Group, the feasibility study, and the community high school integration. And I've asked Monica to speak a little bit on some of the integration that she sees, especially heading up the justice reinvestment. And also if anybody, Al or anybody else on that has any other afterwards, I'd like to hear some comments about how the PRIN is going to be able to dovetail with the other projects going on and how we're going to make the other projects successful with our work as well. Go ahead, Monica.
Thank you. And thank you for moving the time frame of this agenda item so that I can take that other call. So what I want to do right now is just give you all an overview of the justice reinvestment, a little bit of background. I don't want to take up the entire meeting, so it will be pretty high level. But I think you all know that last year, Vermont started a Justice Reinvestment 2 project that was initiated through the legislature and through the governor's office with a letter requesting support to the Bureau of Justice Assistance. And we spent a fair amount of the end of 2019 engaging with the Council of State Governments, going through a data-driven approach to looking at our system. Justice reinvestment is really described as a data-driven approach to improve public safety, to reduce corrections spending, and then to reinvest those savings in strategies that reduce crime and reduce recidivism. So through the process that we engaged in with the Council of State Governments, a number of strategies were proposed and enacted into legislation through Act 148. And before I get into the specific details of that, I mean, just to think about what the goals of justice reinvestment are in this particular Vermont project are to decrease technical violations and improve outcomes for people on supervision, to decrease returns to prison for people who are on community supervision, to increase some consistency in the use of sanctions and incentives, to increase the use of parole as a supervision option, to increase understanding in racial disparities in the criminal justice system, increase understanding of behavioral health needs for people involved in the criminal justice system, increase data availability, and increase public safety. So when I just think about those goals, I do think that there's a significant amount of overlap between what justice reinvestment is doing and the types of things that we might see as a result of this PRIN project. Specifically, the strategies that were enacted with Act 148 cover a broad range of topics. First is a strategy to increase the number of people who may be presumptively released on parole. And there were criteria in the bill that sort of outlined who might be eligible to be presumptively released and how we would go about assessing those people and presenting them in front of the parole board. So that's one strategy. Another strategy relates to a real significant change in furlough, a reduction of a number of furlough statuses, the creation of more of a combined furlough status, and with that change, a definition of what technical violation means. When the department could use a technical violation to interrupt or return a person to incarceration for 90 days or more, and a process by which someone could actually appeal the department's discretion for that type of a return. Another strategy that is enacted is an earned good time program. And that program will allow eligible offenders, there are a few exceptions to the rule at this point, to be able to earn up to 7 days off of their minimum and their maximum sentence. If they do not, if they're incarcerated, they have to be free of a major disciplinary rule violation for that month. If they're in the community on furlough, they have to not have been returned to a correctional facility for a technical violation. So we're in the process of going through rulemaking, which is part of the reason I need to leave the meeting a little early. And then there's a number of other related policy changes that the department is making, but those are the major strategies that were adopted in Act 148. And I think I'll just stop right there and see if people have questions. I know Representative Emmons, you're on the line, and we're certainly a very key person in the this initiative, and maybe you'd want to add something else.
No, you covered it very well, Monica. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Al, how about the initiative we've got going with the Moss Group and culture change and OPM?
Absolutely. And Heather Simons is on along with Andy Moss and Linda Weinberg, who introduced themselves at the beginning. We have entered into an agreement with the Moss Group. They will be providing assistance for us regarding mission, vision, value statements for the department. They're working with our Office of Professional Standards, which Heather Simons is the director of, looking at how we move forward with changes to that mission, vision policy. I'm kind of drawing a blank, and I'm going to turn this over to Heather because she has a much higher level of understanding of what the Moss Group will be doing, although I've been involved in these conversations. Heather, I'm going to turn it to you.
Yep, you're not drawing a blank. You just haven't taken a break today.
No, that's true.
That's all that is. Hi, everybody. Yes, I do. I would like to introduce you to Andy Moss and to Linda Weinberg, who are both taking on a few different projects that have been developing over the last couple of months. And I'll let them say a couple things about who they are and what they do. But just to set the structure of how that fits with the Office of Professional Standards, these conversations happened some months ago on the heels of S24 and what we need to address with regards to race and equity work. The Moss Group, for many of you, well, maybe not many, some of you, this is a return visit over a couple of decades. Andy Moss began working with us, I don't remember the exact year, so I'm rounding to a couple decades, but getting us stood up with our Prison Rape Elimination Act office, our PRIA audits, assisted us with a number of facility transitions when we were moving men and women into different facilities, and all of the training with regards to gender responsive services and programming, and just the nuts and bolts of transitioning facilities in general. Tons of work with the Moss Group over the years with regards to sexual safety in facilities. And of course, they were involved in a small part of the work at Chittenden. And so most recently, they've agreed to take on an even larger scope with some of the work that we're doing to look at the mission and strategy for development and planning with the Office of Professional Standards, which is a new office that includes PRIA, recruitment, retention, constituent services, training, field services training, something other big that I can't think of right now. But that's basically generally the scope and where we're at with that assistance is that we know that when we begin a project like this in an office that addresses the breadth of what we need to manage, we need high level facilitation and some of the best consultants. So I will just toss it over to Andy if you would like to say something. Are you on, Andy?
Sure, I am on. Thank you, Heather, and congratulations to all the great work some of you on this line are doing. I've been watching some of the videos and some of the work legislatively. So probably the simplest way to talk about the work of the Moss Group is we're kind of the foot soldiers. And so the So What company, in terms of as you think about this vision and you work on the culture and how you would reimagine the system, a lot of what we do is with the workforce, sort of hand on hand, like how do you move people towards not just compliance for what you're trying to accomplish, but how do you get commitment and really work with the practitioners on the ground. And so we're delighted to be back in Vermont. Heather's right. I have worked in Vermont extensively, but not in the last probably 6 or 7 years. The Moss Group is located, our headquarters are in DC. We've got offices in Colorado, Atlanta, and Los Angeles. We have 20 staff. We have 70 independent contractors that have different levels of expertise. We've worked with Justice Reinvestment. We're familiar with that. I came out of a background in Georgia Department of Corrections 100 years ago, it seems, and then spent 7 years at the National Institute of Corrections and started the Moss Group almost 20 years ago now. Of course, I started when I was 3, but my vision for the Moss Group was I met so many people through NIC all over the country that were doing amazing work, and I thought, what if I could create a team of people that represent the best and the brightest in the areas of expertise that they have. So we have been very fortunate. Of course, we've had to reshape our work like everyone else in COVID. I feel like I'm running 42 projects off my computer screen, and that's pretty much what I'm doing. But we are accustomed to working with our clients long-term, helping them. Culture change doesn't happen because we have a project, and everybody on this call is experienced enough to know that. It really takes anchoring the change. And how do you do that? And how do you sustain it? And we hope that we can learn from your project and integrate. And Monica, I was so glad to hear that you had the role of talking about these different projects, because that's why we wanted to be on this call, is because we want to work in partnership, not in a silo. It doesn't work that way. And so we are thrilled to be working with you. We are identified, I think, in the field of corrections for working on culture and helping to move the rather large ship in corrections towards, if I wrapped up our work in one sentence, I would say we try to move from being fear-based to hope-based. And what I hear from this project is that you're really trying to create the structure for more hope for people who are in the system, coming out of the system, staying out of the system, and you're doing the research behind it. So Linda is an outstanding member of the Moss Group. I've asked her to be the co-director on this project with Vermont. Linda was most recently the director of public safety in Orlando, Florida, but as an attorney has practiced, but has worked so much interagency work on a high level. I wanted her with me because I know there's so many moving parts right now in Vermont that you're trying to, and these wonderful projects you're trying to implement. And I think Linda can help me make sure that our work is integrated and that we're understanding the full system. And that's going to be really, really important. So we are concretely hired to help stand up the Office of Professional Standards, but to also help bring along the workforce in terms of really supporting the kind of change that you're talking about. So I appreciate that. And Linda does talk, but I know you have a need for time. But Linda, if you want to say something real quickly, I don't want to cut you off.
No, thank you, Andy. No, only that I can talk, but better than that, I can listen. So that's better.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Linda. Thanks, Andy.
Okay, Al, go ahead.
I just want to say thank you. And then the feasibility study, I know that's on the list. We just had our kickoff meeting prior to this meeting with HOK and Freeman, French and Freeman, who are the contractors assigned to the DOC facility feasibility study. So what they're looking at is potential for building a new correctional facility in Vermont to replace the women's facility in Chittenden and also potentially the facility in St. Albans. It was a great meeting. I think we're going to be happy working with this firm. One of the things that I picked up on when they were doing their introductions from HOK, one of the people they have working with them, his specialty is normative environments, which I thought was really great as we talk about changing our culture and we start focusing on this project, on the PRIN project, around humanizing the experience and improving the living conditions and the working conditions inside of a correctional facility. Think about moving forward with a new facility that could potentially include reentry. It's going to be a normative environment. I think that really hit home with me, knowing that I was coming into this meeting and everything that's going on. So that's pretty exciting. So we'll see where that takes us, and maybe, fingers crossed, we'll end up with a new facility.
Okay, and Kathy, go ahead, and if you want to mention the conjunctive project with the women's prison.
Yeah, I won't say much just because I know PRIN is the primary agenda item, but we are doing a parallel project with Chittenden and working closely with the superintendent there and the superintendent of the Maine Women's Reentry Facility. So we've been interviewing staff, and the plan is to, and we've been facilitated conversations between Maine and Vermont, and the plan is to get staff together from Maine and from Vermont and to learn about what it's like to work in that facility and what they like or don't like, and share knowledge. So I just wanted people to know that that's another overlapping project.
Perfect. So probably wondering why I did this. 8 years ago, I was given a job of working on puzzles and finding pieces of puzzles. And the biggest way of solving the problem was sharing. Every time I found a new piece of the puzzle, or if I connected to, is sharing that information. So I wanted to bring that to this project. And one of my main goals is sharing as much information I can across DOC and with other disparate partners that we are working with, because somewhere out there, there's another project, there's another puzzle, there's another solution that we have the ability to make someone else's puzzle complete. So this is the reason I wanted to do this, so people understand what's going on across DOC, and hopefully information that we come across can help make those other ones successful as well as ourselves. Okay, moving on, I'm going to move into Abby and Kathy on the UVM research as we stand to date. They did send out a handout sheet, and if Kathy or Abby would like to take that.
Sure. So we don't want to repeat a lot of what was said on the handout sheet, so I hope folks got a chance to look at it or at some point, but really just want to touch base on some of our current activities right now and what's going on with that. So as you know, or as was in the sheet, is sort of we are working in the sort of data collection phase right now, and there are 3 big key components to the data collection phase. One is the focus groups and interviews, one is survey administration and analysis, and a third is administrative data. So for the focus groups and interviews, they are actually really well underway, and we have been able to get into the facility and start conducting those, and we have also been conducting them remotely via Teams, both for staff and incarcerated individuals. Our goal, since starting the focus groups and interviews in the end of October, was to conduct about 5 or 10 focus groups and about 50 interviews with staff and incarcerated folks between the start, between when we started and then through mid-April. And we're doing those intentionally to try to have like the first group be for us to better understand what's going on the ground, identify some domains and themes that might be of interest that we should explore more deeply. And sort of the second wave would be exploring those more deeply and using them to develop our survey, and then conduct a survey and do some administrative data analysis, and then wrap up the focus groups and interviews by helping us to understand and evaluate what we see from those results. So we're doing it sort of over a period of time. To date, we've conducted 4 focus groups and 13 interviews. We've had excellent representation from across all housing units within Southern, with the exception of the severe mental health units, and we're working out a plan for that. For staff, we've also had excellent representation across all staffing types, uniform staff, non-uniform staff, on-site contractors, etc. Our initial recruitment efforts have been well received, and we are poised to actively conduct 2 to 6 interviews a week looking ahead over that sort of time frame that we're planning between mid-April. We plan to do another reach out to staff in a week or so, just depending on sort of where things stand in the facility, to try to get another round of engagement there. With the rise in COVID, we are now not on site in the facility, so we've switched to remote engagement, which does raise some logistical issues with working with staff, because some folks really want to work with us in person, and so we're trying to think about ideas to do that. Another big success at this point is we have recruited our first Community Research Council members, and Michael Groner is here today, who's one of our star Community Research Council members. And the Community Research Council is part of this participatory research piece, which means we are working very close, or on a regular basis, getting more closely working with folks who actually work in the facility and have on-the-ground experience, as well as those who are incarcerated in the facility and have sort of on-the-ground experience. And they will be considered sort of our research partners and advisors throughout this whole process. So we'll work with them closely, and as we identify themes and domains that come out of the focus groups and interviews, we will bounce those ideas off of them and say, are we hearing this correctly? What do you think? What should we be doing? What should we be doing in more detail? They'll also be our partners in understanding and evaluating the data that we receive. So if something looks interesting that comes out of the administrative data or the survey results, these folks will help us think that through, so that when we get all of these sources of information together, sort of at the end of April, early May, and bring it back to this group and the folks inside the facility, it's comprehensive. It's been sort of vetted by the folks on the inside, and it's as comprehensive as we can make it be. So that's sort of the role of the the Research Council, and we do have active participation now from both staff and incarcerated folks. We are in the throes of developing our survey administration plan. It's going to happen in February or March, and so we're right now developing the survey, and we are well underway and poised to be successful in developing that in time to administer it in February or March. And we know that administering this survey in February and March is going to be, who knows what it will look like. And so we're going to be really flexible. And we have plans at this point stemming from really tapping into the student resources at UVM and descending with hundreds of students ready to engage and to collect data. But we know that's probably not going to happen. So we're thinking more like, how can we get in there in a COVID safe way? And we're exploring lots of data collection options, including potentially buying some secure electronic data sources that would meet the literacy and cognitive needs of folks and confidentiality needs of folks in the facility. So we're really trying to be as expansive as possible in our thinking there. So I'll turn it over to Kathy around some of the issues we're also facing right now.
Yeah, so far I think we've been very pleased, especially realizing there's just 2 of us. Some of the other teams at the other sites are like 4 and 5 people, but so we are sad not to be inside Southern. I think one of our main challenges is figuring out a way to keep people engaged and let them know that we're still working on, trying to interact with them, and even though we're not on site. So what we were doing is just having a presence, and we had these goofy green t-shirts so people knew that we were PRIN, and they would stop us and talk to us or something, or ask us questions. And not being there, creates a new challenge. We don't want people to forget about us or to think we forgot about them. And so, we're exploring other ways, maybe of creating some videos or something that would just sort of update people, or, send messages via the tablets. So that's one of the main challenges. And as Abby said, since some staff want to meet in person, and because of that's not really possible. So we are interacting with the people that are willing to talk to us on the phone or do Teams interviews or something like that. So, I think some of the challenges also are the literacy level, and there's a fair number of people who have very low literacy levels, and so we still want to find a way for them to be involved, and so we're thinking that through and consulting with Urban about how best to do that, and with our IRB also. We are having success getting human resources administrative data, and being able to work with that on the staff side, and getting the administrative data from DOC is still a work in progress. So does anybody have any questions? I guess I do want to say one other thing, which is just that most of the people that we've talked to have been very excited about the project, even though it may have taken a little bit of, them getting used to us or getting used to the idea. And I think they felt like that this wasn't necessarily a DOC initiative, that it was, that the fact that there were external people made them have, greater buy-in in terms of participation and faith in the project. So, I think the trust piece, that exists, it's helpful that we're outsiders. But they've been very excited and pretty engaged, and we've gotten some extremely bright people who have given us amazing insights. So it's been fun, very fun.
And I just want to add to that, when we do talk with folks, and they're very encouraged to hear specifically about this role of the executive committee, and the fact that the information that they are sharing with us is not just going to be in a report that sits somewhere. It's people are out there who are interested in hearing it, and are poised to actually use it to make change. And so that actually is you know, there's a lot of times in lots of organizations, there's starts of change, and there's, you know, you get hung up or it doesn't quite go somewhere. So there's a lot of enthusiasm from the folks inside the facility that we're talking to about, I think this has all the ingredients to work. So the role of the exec committee in that process is huge.
Yeah, I think when they started to realize that there's what we're calling an incubation period where we're going to be trying stuff here after probably May when phase 2 starts, some of the analysis of when we start deciding to try new things, to try new policies, try new, just new engagement within the facility. I think that even got more excitement when they realized we weren't just gathering the data to create a report, that over the next 4 years, we're going to be in and out trying new things to see how it works. I think that was lost in the initial, or people just didn't realize that over the 4 years we were going to be making changes or trying things to see what works. So that really, I know I'm getting stopped all the time in the Common Core and when I'm in the units of what's going on, and everybody's got a story to tell. So it's definitely been fascinating. Any questions for Kathy and Abby where we are so far in the research? Well, moving along, that brings us to, I'm going to have Jesse from Urban speak to phase 2 and the scope of work. I'm not sure if everybody realized that due to COVID and a host of other factors, all 5 sites, Vermont, Colorado, Delaware, Iowa, and Missouri were all selected and approved to move on into phase 2. So I will let him speak to that. Jesse?
All right, thanks, Brad. And one thing just to give everybody a heads up, I know that I'm gonna pull back and also talk a little bit about the phase 1 and phase 2 in broad terms. And I know particularly for people who were at the last executive committee meeting, some of what you're gonna hear, you have already heard, although sometimes when you have quarterly meetings, it doesn't hurt to hear things again. But I also know that there are guests and folks who are coming into sort of a PRIN space for the first time, and it may be helpful for them to hear a little bit more. So as Brad had indicated, and as you may recall, the initial structure, the phase structure of the Prison Research and Innovation Network was to engage a cohort of sites in phase 1, which was about developing a lot of the foundational research and data collection. And then there was going to be a competitive determination of who was moving on to phase 2. It was not assumed that people would go into phase 2. And so when we selected that cohort of sites, Vermont, Iowa, Colorado, Missouri, and Delaware, there was this sense of, question whether everyone would be able to move on to phase 2. Obviously, among other things, COVID has played havoc with everybody's timeline and with the certainty of executing on the parts of the project that were part of phase 1. And we found ourselves, I think, in a position with Arnold Ventures as the funder, and also because everybody was making really good faith efforts, I think, across all the 5 sites to make progress. We were in a position to huddle with Arnold and say, essentially, every one of our sites is really working at this. It seems flatly unfair to make a competitive determination about who moves on to phase 2. Let's figure out how to move, the money around and make sure that we're able to carry, everybody into phase 2, and that was successful. So as Brad mentioned, we've been able to formally invite Vermont to move into phase 2, along with all of the other 4 sites that are in the PRIN. And I would highlight in particular, Abby and Kathy have talked about the work and engagement they've been able to do at Southern, and I do always want to highlight how impressed I think our team has been and how much we appreciate the constant proactive problem solving with DOC to figure out, as you know, COVID has waxed and waned and is waxing again, as you know, DOC has had to go into crisis response mode with all the uncertainty that there's been, but always with the orientation of we're going to figure out how to make the participatory research activities that we've all committed to happen in Southern. And I think that's the kind of thing that has allowed us to kind of have confidence and say, look, I mean, Vermont and all the other states should be able to continue in the project. We're going to figure out how to get this done. It's been, you know, I mean, we knew lots of parts of this project were going to be difficult from the jump. In 2020, literally everything has been more difficult than anyone would have anticipated. But again, I think what we've shown, particularly with, you know, getting the participatory processes and the survey development underway, is that there's a lot of possibility, again, if we're all ready to come together and problem solve to figure out how to make things happen. Maybe a little later than we'd anticipated and hoped, but to make it happen. So I have really appreciated that. So I wonder if it's worth talking a little bit about the phase 1 and phase 2 distinction. I think some of this is what Abby and Kathy have said, but it sort of gives a roadmap of where we are, where we're going, that may be helpful. So as Abby and Kathy mentioned, phase 1, which we're still in, is involving really 3 core research activities. You know, the engagement of staff and incarcerated people at Southern State to understand their perspectives on issues and concerns that are most important to understand through research, and engage them in shaping the PRIN research in Vermont, most particularly the development of the climate surveys. This is the participatory, or a part of the participatory research methodology that we've tried to have as strongly in PRIN. And this is one where I think, you know, the Vermont partners and UVM have really picked this up and ran with it. And, you know, one thing that I'll say about the role of participatory methods in this project, particularly around the roles and the values of recognizing humanity and also being committed to transparency. I mean, we talked a lot about that in terms of this project relative to corrections and the expectation of corrections. And obviously, like, that's a really key value in the project. And, you know, there's certainly a lot of work to be done there. But part of the role of participatory methods is because we in the research community have our own history of ways that we've engaged with people, ways that research has been done historically, a lot of it in prisons. Many of the binding rules about how researchers have to interact with anyone they're collecting data are because of, you know, really awful things that researchers did doing research on people in prisons. And so part of the participatory method is around giving opportunities for people about whom the research will be done to be part of that, to have ownership, to shape it, and also so that we don't do what researchers often do in traditional research, which is collect data from people through surveys and other things, and then disappear. Sometimes for a long time, sometimes the information that's been collected and the findings never find their way directly back to the people, again, who provided the data. And so, you know, the participatory methods have been mentioned a lot, and I do want to say part of why that is an important part of it. It's about trying to determine how we, as researchers, both urban in our national role and UVM, how we're actually going to reflect also these values of recognizing humanity and being committed to transparency in our practice. You know, that's an obligation for us too. It's not just about what corrections needs to do. So with that said, again, you know, there's the participatory process as one of the key phase 1 activities, developing and fielding the climate surveys of both staff and incarcerated people. These will be, you know, separate surveys, although some of the things in them will be sort of mirroring each other at Southern State, and then putting together and having some of the relevant administrative data on prison operations and conditions, and also defining some of the key measures from that are going to be routinely made publicly available in Vermont. And so that's the foundational data collection of phase 1. And then moving into phase 2, there will be this pivot then to, we have this data, we've been able to do some analysis of it. How are we going to use this to think about some of the changes to policy and practice we're going to commit to make, and then in fact evaluate? This is what Brad was saying about, you know, taking this as a basis, but making some real and meaningful changes. One of the key sort of bridge points between phase 1 and phase 2 is going to be data walks and engagement with staff and incarcerated people at Southern State. They will see a lot of this analysis and data first. That's a part. So they won't be the last, and there'll be engagement of this group and others in this, but part of the participatory method is to really, again, respect the role of the people about whom research is being done by giving them a first opportunity to look at some of the data and analysis and be part of interrogating that and analyzing it and sharing their thoughts about what kinds of changes might be suggested by the data. And then, you know, a lot of part in the out years is going to be saying, all right, here's the changes we're going to make. Here's how we're going to evaluate whether or not they've been successful, because we don't just want to make the changes. We want to use this as an opportunity to say whether they're doing what they're intended to do. And also, you know, continuing to collect and share routine data, some of that administrative, but also looking at doing multiple applications of the climate survey so that you don't just get that once, but you're able to look at it over time, not just what climate was in the spring of 2021, but what's happening with it over time. And I guess, you know, part of a last thing that I'll say, you know, a goal of the way we've designed this project, and we know there are a lot of challenges, but the intent was to help and have a capacity building approach, part of that through brokering what in many of the sites are new or enhanced partnerships between external researchers and DOCs, part of this through defining some, you know, measures to make more routinely available. But, you know, what we want to do and what would be a key success of this is at the end of phase 2, when the whole project is over, Vermont should be able to do things collectively that they're not able to do, weren't able to do when they came into the project, so that, you know, the issues that are, you know, going to be top of mind 5 years from now, and you've got enhanced ability to understand them, to see them, to think about what changes you want to make, and then to know whether or not they're being effective. So that's my last attempt at the inspirational methodology that Brad started early, and also a little bit of the phase 1 and phase 2. I'd love to hear questions, comments, and I think this could probably also reflect back to what Abby and Kathy had said, because this is sort of different ways of describing, you know, the same work that's been done and what's happening next. And also too, I guess, sorry, I'm going to say one other thing. It's good for everybody to know, I think, that we've convened 2 specific communities of practice, because again, part of this is that there should be benefit not just from Vermont doing this work, but doing it simultaneously with 4 other states. We've got a researcher-specific community of practice with the research partners in all 5 of the sites, and a corrections-focused one with the corrections professionals there. And, you know, I mean, it's not just that, you know, Abby and Kathy and their team are hearing from staff and incarcerated people at Southern and thinking about how they can do surveying and other things. But, you know, that's happening in Colorado. It's happening in Missouri. It's happening in Delaware. And it's happening in Iowa at the women's facility that they've chosen as their pilot prison. And we're facilitating the opportunity also for those researchers to think together and learn from how they're doing the process and how they're building the survey and how they're doing all the pieces of this. So thanks for your forbearance. Well, I know I told you a lot of things that you already knew to some degree, and I had to say one last thing because I'm like that. But yeah, I'd welcome questions or thoughts about where we are.
Alice?
So I'm intrigued when you're collecting the data, you're engaging with staff and inmates, and we'll make recommendations to put in new initiatives, new policies. Where will those recommendations go? Is it going to be just internally to DOC, Is it also going to include the state employees union with the staff? Is it also going to include the legislative arena because you may need some statute changes? So what's going to be the process, and what if people don't want to agree to what's being proposed for policy changes? Are my questions.
That isn't Al, or I know Commissioner Baker is on. Any comments to that?
So the union is involved. I mean, we are working with them. You know, part of, I think, is you ask about legislative involvement. I mean, that's part of this executive committee. And as we move further into the research, we will be presenting those recommendations, those thoughts on changing, and what we're looking for support. Part of the intent behind the executive committee is to have the people that are the doers and the policy shapers and have the influence to make that happen. And I think as we move forward, we would be bringing some of this to the legislature as a whole, probably to your committee in specific, specifically Alice, and presenting that, looking at what we need, and we'll have the data to support it. And that's really the purpose of that research, is to bring that data in and say, here it is. It's not a pipe dream. It's not a wish list. This is the data behind the changes that are probably needed, will be needed.
I got two other hands raised. Jessica.
Hi, yeah, I was going to say it's you all. It's part of the job of the executive committee, if possible, for you all to help make that change, and Al touched on that. So obviously, if it goes out of the purview or the realm of individuals who are here, we can always invite people in, and we can obviously it's more than just you all, but we hope that you can help to bring that momentum toward your profession and help us to make that actionable.
Well, and if I may too, like thinking about this externally, it's also part of the onus on this group and everybody, part of it, to make sure that you're proposing some things that are actionable. So there may be some things that require legislative action or take a little bit longer, but I think part of, the obligation is to make sure that, look, we're going to find some things that we can do. For sure. Because, I think if everything on the list requires somebody else's permission or a longer process, I think that's going to be, and I think it would be frustrating for a lot of the people that are part of this group too. So I think part of it is too, to make sure that something meaningful is going to happen.
Yeah, I think on that piece, we can focus on that low-lying fruit and make those operational changes to some extent almost immediately. And then as that research continues, we focus on the changes that were made and see what that impact was. So it kind of works itself to the next level as we keep moving.
Okay, I got Michael Groner.
All right, I'm going to do my best to answer the question regarding the union with my 2-year-old daughter sitting on my lap. Speaking specifically to VSDA, they obviously have a very vested interest in any kind of changes that PRIN comes up with regarding improving workplace environments for their members. So, we're open to anything. We're not being, we're not here to be a roadblock. We're not here to stamp our feet and say, no, we don't want anything to change. Union members and the upper levels of the union, positive change for working environments and correctional facilities. Having said that, depending on the changes that the executive committee recommends, some things may be bargainable. There will be some instances, if you guys want to recommend changes that we just can't snap our fingers and do it, like we'll have to discuss what these changes are in the future. Don't take that as like a warning shot across the bow that we're going to fight you, because that's not our intent at all. Our intent is to improve workplace environment for our employees and, work with, DOC management and the legislature hand in hand to, improve everybody's standing inside a correctional facility. I just want you guys to know that there's some things that, yes, we can just do with the, a recommendation from the executive committee, but there are some things that may have to be bargained at the next contract or thank you for that.
That's a good point, Mike. Very good point about the bargaining piece.
Yeah, and again, I'm not trying to be, combative or chip on my shoulder. I just want everyone to be on the same page.
No, it's a big piece of it, and
Tim Burgess, you had a comment?
I had to learn how to unmute. Yeah, I just want to say that this process as a formerly incarcerated person, as an advocate for people in the correctional systems, I think that this process is a great step. I'm happy to be part of it. That being said, I think Representative Emmons' question is really good. And I think that, an outsider really doesn't calculate all of the different parameters or hoops that sometimes we have to jump through. But I will do everything within my power within the advocacy community to implement the changes we're working with that come out of this. So I just wanted to throw that 3 cents in there. Thanks.
Thanks, Tim.
Okay. Any more comment on that? Okay, if not, we're going to move on. Yesterday,
Lauren had a comment. Lauren, I think Lauren's
Lauren?
waving.
Okay, sorry.
Sorry,
Go
at first I was just using my physical hand and then I realized I could raise it on the computer too. But part of what Urban has been doing the past couple months, time is weird now, has been reaching out to advocacy organizations in Vermont as well. So people outside of the executive committee we are planning to keep in touch with throughout the project and just let them know this is what you should expect. We're going to be sharing our findings with you. You can also join in our process to make these changes happen. So Tim, you're not alone. And Tom, you're on here as well. So the advocacy community is something that Urban's also trying to reach out to and engage. So.
Okay.
Lauren, could I ask a question?
Sure.
Would it be possible to get a sense of like a list of those organizations? There are some that kind of operate under the radar, and I'd want to make sure you didn't miss anybody.
Yeah, I might need some help from my team, but we've talked to how many, like 10 criminal justice, like CJCs locally. We've talked to people from the ACLU. I need help from my teammates here.
Yeah.
It's a long list.
Or even at a later
we have a list on the SharePoint.
Yeah, we could provide the full list on SharePoint.
That would be great.
Yeah, and I'll also say, like, we tried to do kind of load up on the time on the initial outreach, but the plan was always for that to be open-ended. So you can't, like, as long as people are suggesting other folks for us to connect to, it can't be too late, I will say.
Lauren, I sent you a message in the chat with my email address. I'd love to talk to you. Thanks.
Thank you, Karen.
Okay. All right, we'll move along a little quick here. Yesterday, we had members of our team present at CRIM, a conference that Urban had a couple of our cross-site teams present on the participatory research process. And I know Jessica was our spokesperson on that. If anybody tuned into it yesterday, it was a pretty fun little hour to listen to the other sites talk as well. Jeffrey Lynn from Colorado was very interesting to listen to. But Jessica, do you want to give a quick overview of yesterday's presentation?
Sure, yeah, just very brief because I know we're keeping track of time here. So CrimCon is Criminology Consortium is what it stands for, but basically it's a research conference where researchers, those who are criminal justice practitioners, and also just the public can tune into because it's delivered completely online. And there were 3 different speakers from 3 different sites who attended to represent kind of like the Prison Research and Innovation Initiative. And then along with Abby and Kathy, I was able to present some information about our state university partnership, go through just some of the information that makes up that partnership, some key elements, and then also just kind of like lessons learned from year 1 and challenges made along the way, of course, in developing any partnership. So it was only a 10-minute presentation per person, so it was super short. But I can also, once the recording's available, I can have Brad disseminate if anyone's interested.
And Jess, I know that we have other venues now, but I was just curious how the experience was of participating, because I will say, so CrimCon is a new innovation. So usually every year there's an in-person meeting of the American Society of Criminology, which, like most in-person things, was canceled. And there were some people got really proactive and said, like, we can, if not replicate this, but we can create a virtual platform that does some of the same, and in a lot of ways was even more open, I think, to other people. So I think we felt this was an important opportunity to talk about the project, but also I don't think any of us knew how it was going to be, how well done it was going to be. So I guess you don't have to answer, but I'll say I hope that the way that it was pulled off made it feel like it was a good and positive thing. My sense is that it did allow for sort of a broader engagement, both as presenters and viewers than kind of the traditional conferences do.
No, I would say I think it was pretty good. Abby, Kathy, if you want to add in, I mean, I presented at conferences before. I do have a research background, and sometimes it's just, if you don't do like a presentation, it's just like a poster, then you get like stragglers who see you, but you don't always get a bunch of engagement. And I found that having this online forum, there were a lot of people who could kind of drop in and drop out, and they could listen and then also provide information. And it was a little more, like you said, it's a little more reachable to a wider audience than a typical conference. There were parts that were, it was fast, because it was like 10 minutes, go. The moment that presentation's done, yours is up. We will mute you if you go over. So that part was scary, but I think it was good. Abby, do you want to add?
I actually was just going to ask Tim. I saw Tim raise his hand, and I also saw that he was an audience member yesterday. So I'd love to hear what Tim has to say.
I thought the presentation was really good, and you were confined to a very short space. I found the whole CrimCon pretty interesting, actually, but I thought your presentation, Abby and Kathy's part, was well done.
Okay, thank you, Tim. Just trying to keep this short. I know we got a few other things to go through. I wanted to bring up early on, after taking over for Jessica as Prim, one of my contacts in VPR, Nina Keck, reached out to me. She wanted to do a follow-up of something I was doing at Rutland. Then found out that I was connected with this program, asked me a few questions. So along with Rachel Feldman, we are working with VPR. They are possibly going to do a 3-part series over the next 2 years or so on the PRIN project itself. So there is interest from VPR to get this out there, to understand the project. So we're really taking our time to look at it, but she's gonna want to do some initial stakeholder interviews. And so I think people from the executive board, people from the research, people from urban, DOC, and if we can arrange an inmate interview, that would be great as well, but we're still working on that. But I just wanted to let everybody know that we do have interest from VPR on the project. So that is really great news, I think. And finally, before we get to Commissioner Baker, Al, do you want to talk about the elephant in the room, COVID, and some of the contingencies and actually some of the stuff that took place this morning?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Brad. So as everybody is aware, COVID has kind of taken over our time and commitments since March. I think, speaking for myself and the entire DOC team, we've done an extraordinary job keeping COVID out of our facilities. A few snafus here and there with the first hit in St. Albans this spring. But as we see the numbers increase throughout our state and our local counties, it's obviously brought us to a higher sense of awareness of what's going on, knowing that this, if it does get into our facility, it's coming from the outside. It's not something that's already in there. Our intake quarantine units are working, our isolation units are working. And yesterday we ended up with a new positive case in Springfield as a result of a new intake. This contact tracing went into effect almost immediately. And what we found through our contact tracing is that our quarantine system worked. There were no staff that were overexposed above that 15-minute time frame. The staff on the outside that ended up transporting this individual in, different story. Our offenders that are in the community have wide range of contacts, and the contact traces earned their money yesterday trying to figure out where this guy had been. But so with that happening, it's obviously it's going to impact the in-person visits of the project inside of our facility for the foreseeable future. A lot of us are holding our breath for Thanksgiving and then again Christmas. Obviously we've seen the increase in numbers across the state after Halloween. We're kind of at that 2-week period. They're blowing up. And even with all the measures that are put in place in the governor's executive order, it's going to be hard for people to stay away from their family. That's a tough call to make. So again, we're keeping our fingers crossed. We're doing everything we can. One of the measures we put in place is to limit the outside visitors coming into the facility and anybody other than staff. So that's again, until we can feel like these numbers are dropping and we're seeing a decrease. I know the DOC is not at the top of the list for the vaccine, but we're up there. We'll keep our fingers crossed on that we'll see that sometime after the beginning of the year. Maybe that will loosen up some of the restrictions that we're seeing everywhere. We had Mississippi yesterday. Obviously, people are aware that we had 184 inmates test positive in Mississippi. One of the inmates who had tested positive previously tested positive again. It's outside the 90-day window. So that individual is in quarantine or back in isolation now, has been in quarantine. So we're keeping an eye on that. That facility was tested this week. Springfield facility was tested today. All the staff in Mississippi are being tested this week. 340 something staff. I just got information on that currently there's 4 positives right now out of staff at Mississippi. So not surprising. They're seeing 12 to 1,400 cases a day in Mississippi right now. So we're certainly keeping an eye on that. But one thing that was positive for us was that we didn't have any new positives in Mississippi. It was a previous positive, showing again that our protocols worked and the work that our out-of-state team is doing with Tallahatchie and overseeing that down there it's working. Chittenden and St. Johnsbury are scheduled for testing next week, and then we'll be going to a bi-weekly testing schedule of all of our staff. So, the 6-week schedule is now gone to bi-weekly. We know the testing works, and that's what we're going to continue to pursue. So, obviously, our team is very busy with COVID and trying to be proactive as best we can, and then reactive when we have to be. But certainly on everybody's mind right now. You're muted, Brad.
Sorry about that. Any questions related to COVID? Yeah, standing in line to do testing this morning at Springfield myself. It's always, I appreciate it anyway.
I know it's a lot for
Okay.
staff, but
Yes.
it is. It's a lot, and I understand that. And I just really thank everybody that all of our staff are just doing an amazing job staying ahead of this.
Okay, so before I open it up to questions and I'll bring in Commissioner Baker, I just wanted to just let everybody know, I hope everybody's appreciating the small updates I've been sending out. I heard you on the executive meeting prior to me being hired that you wanted to have little updates. So I'm going to try to continue that. And even as we manage going forward, dealing with the and limiting our interviews and whatever we can do, I will still manage to keep the updates and sending them to you. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Commissioner Baker.
Thanks, Brad. I appreciate that. And Brad, thank you for everything you're doing since you've landed here. Really appreciate it. And, appreciate the leadership on this project. Yeah, I didn't pipe up earlier when you called on me because I wanted Al to brief folks and thanking Al for his leadership, not only on the PRIN project, but he just briefed you on COVID. And the COVID response is on the back of Al Cormier and his leadership. And I want people to know that it's a priority that we're keeping our staff and our inmate population safe. And it is a lot of work. And Al leads up that team besides everything else he does. And I want everybody on this this meeting to understand just how dedicated he is. But I guess my comments are thank you to everybody for participating in this process. The briefing earlier about what's going on inside corrections, every time I hear it, I'm amazed at the staff. And I'm talking about everybody. You know, we have representation and Mike Groner here from the union. And you can just imagine, and now that you're working on this project and getting briefed on it, the security staff inside the jails are under enormous pressure and the mandatory overtime. And I'm so proud of what they do every day. You know, I'm new to corrections, as everybody knows. I kind of kid, I just learned how to spell corrections last week. And I'm learning slowly, but the learning curve is pretty steep. But I do know this, that you heard all the stuff going on inside corrections, the Moss Group, reinvestment too. And I know questions were asked by Representative Edmonds about, you know, what's going to happen. The earth, you know, the ground is shaking underneath corrections right now. I mean, that's how radical the changes are that are happening inside the organization. And, you know, Andy Moss in the Moss Group have made this point several times, and Andy just made it to all of you. Cultural change in an organization takes time. But I think if you talk to some of the staff, it's rapidly changing inside, and the credit goes to the staff. One of the things that I want to just kind of comment on a couple things that Representative Edmonds asked questions about. And I know we have legislators on the meeting that are part of the executive committee, and they've heard me say this privately, and they may have heard me say it in a couple of their committee meetings. What makes me excited about this project is that it's a corrections-driven project with partners. And Kathy and Abby, I see you on, and I appreciate what UVM is doing, and really appreciate what UVM is doing, jump-starting the work in Chittenden with Maine, because you can't disconnect everything we're doing. PRIN, reinvestment too, the Moss Group. You know, it may look a little ragged from the outside, but there is a strategy here. And we're starting to connect the dots with the strategy. Excuse me, it's been a long week. I've been on team calls since 7:30 this morning, so my voice is about ready to go, which some of the staff probably will be very happy if I lose my voice before I get done talking. We are making rapid changes, but what I'm really excited about PRIN, this is a correction-driven project. And I've been pretty vocal, and I'll say it here, and I know there's legislators on the phone. Part of the problem with corrections has been over the years that they're micromanaged. No one lets them be creative. Everybody's got the answer for corrections, But it's kind of an interesting thing. When my phone rang in December, there was no one interested in the job. You know what I mean? So as I often say to my friends at the legislature, if these answers are so simple, then why aren't people lined up so I can go home, right? Take this job. And I half-kiddingly say that, but it's important to understand, why is the corrections staff so excited about this? Because finally somebody said to them, okay, the guardrails are down, go do your thing. And that's what's happening right now. And that's what we're doing with the Moss Group and other folks internally. It is rapid change happening with our partners. And, you know, again, how do we share this? I think one of the lessons that we're learning inside corrections right now is that we tend to be insular over the years. Corrections gets attacked about something, and folks rightfully, because they're dedicated to what they do, from the line staff up to the leadership team. And when they're attacked, sometimes it feels like it's personal. They go into what I call a bunker mentality. They get insular, and no one knows what's going on inside corrections. So my friends in the media immediately think there's some major conspiracy going on inside corrections because we're bunkered down. And I'm so proud of the staff right now on this project and other projects, because I see the change unfolding in front of my eyes. And when you hear Al Cormier talk about the humanity and normalizing life inside jails, and I see Karen Transguard Scott on the number of conversations Karen and I've had, and Representative Redmond, I see you, as I just emailed you a while ago. It's good to see you, and you're looking great. You know, these are hard conversations, and we're moving forward. And so for the people that are on the executive committee, do not underestimate the earth that's getting moved right now. And you're a big part of that, you know, and Tim Burgess, and, you know, the list can go on, the folks that are working on this and contributing to it. And this is really what should be going on in the field of corrections. Collaboration for the greater good amongst the greatest number of people we can bring into the fold. And Brad has heard me talk many years about collaboration for a greater good from his days in Rutland. So I just felt like this is an opportunity to brag a little bit about the employees in corrections right now and the work that's going on and the earth that's moving underneath us very rapidly. And at the same time, we're working like hell to keep COVID out of our system. And under the leadership of Al Cormier, staff's doing a hell of a job. And we're keeping our folks safe. We're keeping the inmates safe. And there's no guarantees we're going to be able to keep this up. But we're doing everything in our power through testing, and our staff is under enormous pressure. Al, was it 5 weeks in a row that we tested St. Johnsbury staff?
4 weeks, will be 5. Next week will be their 5th test.
We had positive tests in St. Johnsbury. Next Monday will be their 5th week in a row getting tested. I mean, just put yourself through that, right? And so again, while we're doing this and COVID is going on, this project is making a difference inside corrections, and people are excited about it. So thank you for what you're doing. I'll get off my high horse now, and if folks have any questions for me, I'll try to answer them, but I don't have the answers to us, the team that's working on this. I just get briefed once in a while, and I stand on the sidelines and cheer for them and tell them to keep going. So thanks for the opportunity to talk.
Muted, Brad.
I keep muting myself. So thank you, Commissioner. Appreciate the kind words. Looking forward to driving this program to a successful adventure wherever it does lead us. And now I'll open it up, entertain questions people have. Moving forward, we are at the 90 minutes, but I've got it scheduled for 2 hours. So if you want to stay, I'm here to stay. So if you want to go ahead with your questions. I do want to say I appreciate everybody welcoming me as I got plopped into the middle of, I know I come in halfway through this project for phase 1, but we are moving forward, and I can't say enough about the staff and the inmates at Southern. They have welcomed me as part of DOC, and the inmates, especially when we're walking around with Kathy and Abby, just love to come up and talk. So it's actually been fabulous. And anybody else?
Brad, one other thing, I apologize for jumping back in because I often do this when I start thanking people. Jesse, Lauren, and the other folks from the Urban Institute, thank you so much. The guidance that you're giving us with UVM, this is a game changer. And that expertise that you bring to Little Old Vermont, and I still think about our dinner in February, right? That the snowstorm that took you almost 3 hours to drive up from Springfield to meet for dinner. And I appreciate what you're doing for us, and it's making a difference. And thank you very much. I'm hoping that we can get by this COVID thing and we can get you back up to Vermont in the spring. There's no guarantees in May in Vermont that you won't drive in a snowstorm. Hopefully it won't be. And hopefully we can get past the COVID thing, come back and break bread again and celebrate the good work that's going on. So thank you.
Appreciate that, Commissioner. I think about that trip fondly in part because it was the last time that I went anywhere really, very far from my house. And, I think, it's been a pleasure, and I hope that, again, as particularly the pandemic is, maybe, fingers crossed, not back in a crisis, but we'll see what happens, but that we can continue to do what I hope we model in the spring, which is figure out how to be flexible, but also be a good partner by, playing that external role and making sure that we're insistent in minding like what needs to happen in order to make sure that whatever happens and where some things might happen to the timeline, but that we end up in the successful place we all want to be at the end.
Okay, anybody else have anything they'd like to bring up, like to discuss? How about a feel-good story? Anybody have a parting feel-good story?
Yeah, I do. I want to make a comment about Al Cormier and the way he showed up on Vermont Edition this week. I've talked about this a couple of times, talked to a lot of people about this, but what really struck me about Al, about your interview, was you expressed so much compassion for the people that are living inside our facilities. It was just, I'm a little bit choked up about it right now, thinking about it. Really noted that shift. I also really noted how you gave credit to the folks living inside the facility for the way that COVID's been handled. Really appreciated that. And I thought that, that Jane Lindholm threw you a couple curveballs, and you handled those with, Kathy Fox said this in the chat, you handled with transparency and just great honesty. And I was just completely impressed. So thanks so much, Al.
Thank you, Karen. I appreciate the kind words. Thank you.
Okay, I got Tim Burgess. He's got his hand up.
I just want to add to what Karen said, that I listened to the whole thing, and the monumental shift from where I was, and I got out in 2009. I was under supervision till 2017, but the monumental shift in corrections in the last 2 years has been really incredible. And I want to thank Commissioner Baker for that. I want to thank Al for that, for taking the time to really look in depth on not just how staff are affected, and that's an important piece, but also how the inmates living in these facilities are doing. I just wanted to throw that in.
Thank you, Tim.
And I got Mike Groner.
So I'll circle back to what Al said originally. I think it was Al, rather than you, Brad, about inserting humanity into the department. I chatted with Mr. Baker, I don't know, 2 or 3 weeks ago. I told him something that I wanted to share with all you guys. As a caseworker, I work a lot with release planning, getting guys out to wherever, transitional housing, just getting them out of jail on supervision or maxed out. And I can't really put a number on how many people I've helped get out. But on my cork board in my office, I have like, I don't know, 3 or 4 letters, either from offenders or from their families, like thank you notes. Thanks for your help. I'm doing well. I'm staying sober. I have a job. I actually got a phone call out of the blue yesterday in my office from an offender that I had released a few weeks ago. And he just called, telling me that he was doing well and that he appreciated all the help that I had done, you know, stuff like that. So when we think about, you know, reinserting or reinvigorating humanity into corrections, it's possible, like it's already there. It's just not there in an amount that we all want to see. So I know it can feel like a heavy lift, especially maybe to some people at my level in the department, but it already exists. So we just need to nurture it and bring it up. So I have really high hopes for this project. I know the union has really high hopes for this project. I honestly don't see how this project won't succeed in at least benefit, you know, some benefits. Maybe we won't hit every goal, but I know that will definitely improve working conditions for employees and living environments for the incarcerated people. And I think people are beginning to understand that we're connected. It's one big circle. What affects the incarcerated affects the employees. When it affects the employees, it's circular. And I think more and more people at the uniformed level are beginning to realize that. So that's my feel good story for Friday afternoon.
Thanks, Mike.
Thank you, Mike. Appreciate that.
Anybody else?
Hey, Brad. Hey, Mike. Don't tell too many stories about what we talked about. Okay.
No, that's the only one. That's the only one. You swore me to secrecy. That's the only one.
I'm just kidding you, Mike. I appreciate you and what you do, Mike.
Well, we appreciate you and Mr. Cormier's leadership. This is some wild times. So you guys have been, the ship's been steadied as much as it can be right now. So we're chugging along.
Thanks, Mike.
Let's see. All right. I'm not seeing anything more. We're just over the 100-minute mark, so we got some time. I appreciate everybody attending. I think we're well on our way. The project is moving forward. We'll just keep moving forward. I mean, that's what we're all here to do. And I appreciate everybody's comments I get in the emails. I look forward to engaging to you all. Feel free to send me an email, call me. I will talk about anything and everything that we need to. I'm not afraid of the heavy conversations. So with that, if no one has anything more, I would say enjoy your weekend.
Yeah, happy Thanksgiving, y'all.
Thank
you.
you.
And I just want to respond to Kathy put in the chat to thank Mike Lyon, and we gotta recognize Mike publicly as well for his work and opening up his facility and allowing this to happen. Couldn't do it without you, Mike. So thank you for that. And Kathy, thank you for putting that up there.
Yep, we miss our trips down to Southern. So.
Yeah, thank you, Al. It wasn't needed, but thank you.
All right. Yeah. Hope everybody has a good holiday.
Enjoy the turkey.
As weird as it's going to be, enjoy it.
Be safe, folks. Please be safe.